For our series, Eye on Earth, we have this. The UN Secretary General saying humankind is waging a war on nature. Antonio Guterres spoke to us here at CBS this morning ahead of a major address today that he's calling the state of the planet. And in a word, that state is broken, he says, citing man-made global warming. He's hoping to push the world toward a more ambitious program to address it. We spoke to him as part of Covering Climate Now, a collaboration of more than 400 news outlets worldwide dedicated to explaining the problem and the dangers of a warmer Earth. With our old familiar planet increasingly gone, burned and battered, melting in ways we've never experienced before, nearly 200 countries struck a deal to at least begin to address the problem of global warming. But while the Paris Agreement was ushered in with cheers, 5 years later, it has not yet resulted in significant change.
I would say the majority of the countries have not been able to fulfill their commitments made in Paris.
Which is why United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres is now warning that the world's failure to act with urgency is not only dangerous, but suicidal.
There is a growing conscience that the way we are moving is a suicide in relation to the future and to our future generations.
So to take your metaphor, the world is on the ledge, and your job is to convince the world to step off of it rather than jump.
It is true.
As we speak here today, the United States is the only country to leave the Paris Agreement. We are not in it. How important was it for Joe Biden to have won the election in 2020?
I think that the fact that the incoming administration has announced that they will again join the Paris Agreement and they will commit to net zero emissions in 2050 is absolutely crucial to rescue the planet. I understand that in some people in the United States there is this idea that what makes sense is to have a policy more inward looking. It is my true belief that we all need to be cosmopolitan, and it is together that we can rescue our planet and improve the living conditions of everybody everywhere.
Guterres has science on his side as he lays out the problem, predicting a planet forever marked by stronger storms, more frequent heat waves, and longer droughts if the global average temperature rises by more than 1.5 degrees Celsius by the end of the century. Right now, we're headed for at least twice that increase.
We are still in line with an increase of temperature of 3 to 5 degrees in the end of the century. That would be absolutely devastating for the world economy and for human life. So it's time for the war between humankind and nature to end. Why is humankind at war with nature? Well, because the logic of the economic development for a long time was a logic of exploitation of everything, of every resource available, without looking into the future, without looking into the limits.
Historically, the bulk of the world's energy has come from oil, gas, and coal, fuels that create greenhouse gas emissions, which warm the planet. Finding a way to lower those emissions is the only way to stop global warming. The world's oil and gas companies have trillions of dollars of oil and gas that they know about, that they're waiting to dig up and to sell. Who is going to pay those companies to not dig it up and burn it?
The value of companies in history changes with the changing conditions of the global economy. There was a cycle of oil as the key engine of the world economy. That cycle is finished. So the value of oil and gas companies will diminish as the value of coal companies is already diminishing. So I'm totally convinced that inevitably a lot of the oil and gas that is today in the soil will remain in the soil.
So that last point is why President Trump would say that the Paris Agreement was a job killer. And what's interesting about Guterres is he's acknowledging that, yeah, it's a job killer if you work for an oil and gas company, but it's a job creator on the other side.
I was going to say on the other hand.
And really importantly, he's calling in this speech he's going to give today for a basic income, as he calls it, to help bridge people out of the old industry to something new. And that's a change. Talking about the economic pain and alleviating it is a key change over the last 5 years.
Yeah, and most importantly, climate change, if you don't address it, is a job killer.
Yes.
It's an economic disaster.
Yeah. That's why it's so important that we're having the conversation again.
Yes.
Very important.
Yep. All right.
Very interesting, Tony.
Thank you. And you can hear more of that conversation, Gail, on the CBS This Morning podcast.
Well,
Your
then.
little earbuds.
It just gets better and better.